All right, and we are live. Oh man, why does this always happen? Sorry guys, let me fix this real quick. For some odd reason, it's acting crazy. All right. All right, ninjas, I think we're good. What's up? Welcome to Fed Reacts. Today we're going to be talking about Luigi Mangione and his federal case. Let's get into it, guys.
I'm a special agent with Homeland Security Investigations, okay, guys? HSI.
This is what Fed Reacts covers.
Defendant Jeffrey Williams, an associate of YSL, did commit the felony. So here's what 6ix9ine actually got. Racketeer conspiracy. This attack shifted the whole U.S. government. This guy got arrested for espionage, okay? Trading secrets with the Russian John Wayne Gacy, a.k.a. the Killer Clown, okay? One of the most prolific serial killers of all time, killed 33 people. Zodiac Killer is a pseudonym of an unidentified serial killer who operated in Northern California. All these serial killers, guys, they really get off on getting attention from the media. Many years, Jeffrey Epstein sexually exploited and abused dozens of minor girls at his home. It was OJ working together to get Nicole killed. We're going to go over his past, the gang ties, so that this all makes sense.
All right, we're back. What's up, guys? Welcome to Fed Reacts, man. I'm excited to do this with y'all ninjas. We are on early, super early. Guys, give me ones in the chat if the audio is good. Give me ones in the chat if audio is good. Okay, give me ones in the chat. Let's see here. I'm checking. We're live on Rumble. We're live on YouTube. We're live on X. We're live everywhere. I've been cooking on X all day. All right, cool. I see a bunch of ones here. Awesome. Great. What's up, guys? Welcome to the stream. We got a lot to talk about today. I think more than likely, I'm going to cover Fed Reacts, obviously, today with this case. We got a lot to talk about on the federal case. And then also, we're going to be covering a bunch of current events going on, guys. You have, obviously, the Andrew Tate case, Big W in there. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Nick Fuentes almost getting assassinated. And then we're going to also talk about the Hawk Tool girl. We're going to talk about Druski. We got a lot to talk about today, guys. A lot of stuff going on. You know, obviously, TMZ did a piece on me for responding to Fatboi. So yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to do Fed Reacts first, right? From 5 to maybe around 7 o'clock or so. I'm going to end the stream and then we're going to go live on Fresh and Fit, and I'm going to cover the other stuff on Fresh and Fit. It's only going to be me today, I think, guys. I don't know if we're going to have an after hours. I'm still checking in with Chris and everything else like that. So it's probably going to just be me. It's going to be me for Fed Reacts, and it's going to be me for Fresh and Fit. I'm going to run this one solo dolo. And then if we have an after hours, we'll cover the after hours. And you guys are probably wondering, Myron, why are you doing Fed Reacts now? The reason why I'm doing Fed Reacts, guys, is I'm going to be going away to Arizona tomorrow. We're going to go out to Turning Point, USA. I got my tickets literally last second. I wasn't going to go, but, you know, I said, fuck it, I'll go. One of my buddies got us a spot. So I'll be over there. I'll be over there at Turning Point, USA. You know, I'll be talking with the people. We'll see what happens. You know, you guys know that I'm pretty... controversial, and a lot of people would consider me far right, but I don't think so. But you know, people say it, so or alt right, whatever the fuck they want to say nowadays. So yeah, I will be there. So yeah, so the announcements again, because I see that the numbers are starting to fly up here on Rumble and YouTube, and we're live on X as well. Shout out to all you ninjas that are watching, by the way, and I apologize for the delay. Rumble, for some odd reason, Rumble Studio made another event. So to all my CastleClub guys, I apologize, and also to the guys that were watching on Rumble. You guys were on the other stream, that's why the numbers are behind a little bit, but we're live. So okay, this is how it's gonna go. I'm gonna cover Luigi Mangione, right? First, we're gonna cover his federal case. We're gonna talk about that. After that's done, we're gonna do Fresh and Fit. I'm gonna cover a bunch of topics on there. I'm gonna cover Andrew Tate case, Nick Fuentes, Hawk Tool girl, Druski. We're going to cover literally a bunch of stuff. It's only going to be me, okay, on this one. And then if we have after hours, we'll do after hours, but we might not. And the reason why, again, is because I'm going to Arizona tomorrow. We're going to be out there in Turning Point, USA. It's going to be a good time. Meet some people, hang out. Some people might not like me over there, but that's fine. It is what it is. I have no problem having discussions with people that I dislike or I disagree with. There's no one really on the right that I could think of that I dislike. There's people I disagree with, but it's on that one topic, if you know what I'm saying. But other than that, you know, whatever. What else? There was something else I was going to tell you. Oh, you guys want to know about the Dean Withers debate? It's going to happen. I talked with him earlier today on Twitter. We'll see what happens. I think we're going to debate something to do with intersexual dynamics, men and women in leadership, maybe. I don't know. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. You guys know me. I'm not scared to debate anybody. I'll debate anybody on the left. It's just that they tend to be scared to debate me for obvious reasons. So, yeah. Okay. And let me see here. I'm going to read some chats, and then we're going to get into the show, my ninjas. All right. So we got here. Oh, and I got my Christmas sweater on. You know, all I want for Christmas is Trump back, which he is back, which I'm glad. I actually got this sweater last year. And he's in office now, so it's good. Would you let Angie on After Hours ever again as one of the girls on the panel? I could. I mean, it would be funny because she would just like talk shit to the girls probably at this point. I've transformed her, which is great. She's great. Martin had a dream, but standing in front of her would be a nightmare. Oh, in front of Sexy Red. I see what you mean there with the picture. Okay, and then we got here, Revoked at 19 says, Myron, question. I currently live separately from my girl and we have a baby on the way. Would you suggest moving in together for sake of the relationship? I know you say it's up to me, but what would you do if you and Angie had a baby on the way is my question. Well, I mean, in the early stages, I could see why. Maybe you might want to be there more often, but bro, this is why it's important to live close. You don't want to live like far as hell. You know what I mean? But maybe in those early stages, man. But you gotta periodically go in and out, bro. Trust me, because she's gonna. The more time you spend with your girl, bro, the worse it gets for you. Trust me. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it, guys. We got some big news with this one, and like I said before, we're gonna cover a lot tonight, a lot. So let's go ahead. Who's Luigi Mangione? For those that are unaware, I've been living under a rock for the past few weeks. This is a guy that obviously was involved in the prolific murder of the killing of a United Healthcare CEO, right? UPenn graduate, if I'm not mistaken, 26 years old, and he's a data scientist, okay? So here is the federal press release, right? U.S. Public Affairs, U.S. Department of Justice, the official shit. Luigi Mangione charged with the stalking and murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson and use of a silencer in a crime of violence, okay? A criminal complaint was unsealed today charging Luigi Nicholas Mangione, 26, of Towson, Maryland, in connection with the December 4th murder of United Healthcare executive Brian Thompson in Midtown Manhattan. Mangione was taken into federal custody today and was presented this afternoon in Manhattan Federal Court before U.S. Magistrate Judge Catherine H. Parker for the Southern District of New York. Once again, guys, Southern District of New York, I tell you guys this all the time. They're a very aggressive district. They've done some of the biggest cases in the country. They're also the ones that are prosecuting your boy P. Diddy. So this is what they do, man. Very, very prestigious and aggressive United States Attorney's Office. Today, the Justice Department brought federal murder charges against Luigi Mangione, said Attorney General Merrick Berry Garland. As alleged, Mangione planned this attack for months and stalked his victim for days before murdering him. And we're going to talk about the stalking charge because there is a catch-22 with this thing that might hurt them later on. Methodically planning when, where, and how to carry out this crime, I am grateful to our state and local law enforcement partners for their tireless efforts to locate and apprehend the defendant and to ensure that he answers for his alleged crime. Brian Thompson was gunned down in cold blood as he walked down a street in Midtown Manhattan. Blah, blah, blah. Acting U.S. Attorney Edward Y. Kim for the Southern District of New York. Thompson was allegedly killed just because he held the position of chief executive officer of a health insurance company. As alleged, Luigi Mangione traveled to New York to stalk and shoot Thompson in broad daylight in front of the Manhattan Hotel, the Hilton, if I'm not mistaken, all in a grossly misguided attempt. And then, and just remember, guys, I taught you guys this before, but one more time, nice little refresher for you guys. If you want to know who the lead agency is on a case, the first law enforcement agency that announces it is the lead agency. So in this case, right, you got the U.S. Attorney. We know that. That's going to be the United States Attorney's Office. They're going to say that. Then, and then you look here, it goes, boom. So James E. Dennehy of the FBI New York Field Office. So this is the Assistant Director. Wow. Okay, so that's pretty high up. Luigi Mangione allegedly conducted the carefully premeditated and targeted execution of Brian Thompson to incite national debates Said Assistant Director James E. Dennehy of the FBI New York Field Office, this alleged plot demonstrates a cavalier attitude towards humanity, deeming murder an appropriate recourse to satiate personal grievances. Through a continued close partnership with NYPD, the FBI maintains our steadfast commitment to fervently pursue any individual who promotes personal agenda through violence, okay? So NYPD detectives work relentlessly to identify and widely distribute images of the suspect who allegedly carried out this premeditated, pre-planned, targeted murder. So we're going to go through the complaint. They go through more of this stuff, but we're going to go ahead and go right to the document itself. We're going to bring it back to old school Fed React shit, okay? And we are going to actually read the complaint.
Welcome, punch!
Okay? Because we're going to break this thing down, and then we're going to react to a video. But before I read the complaint, this is him arriving in New York yesterday, okay? Roughly yesterday afternoon. Look at this shit. And I want you guys to pay attention. So they brought him by helicopter. You can see our FBI NYPD Joint Task Force. We're going to talk about what a task force is here very soon. And I'll explain that to you. But this is all by design. And I find it interesting that no FBI agents, it looks like, are there. These are FBI NYPD task force officers. And I apologize, guys, for the sound. For some odd reason, it's only coming out my left headphone. I guess, who is this? NBC New York is stupid. Needs a better sound engineer. They need Mo on their team. So he gets off the plane. He has, and this is done all the time by NYPD guys. This is what's known as a perp walk, okay, perpetrator walk, where they bring him out, and obviously they got the cameras there and everything else like that. Now, I know a lot of you guys are wondering, what the fuck? Why are so many officers? We're going to talk about that here in a second as well, and I'm also going to explain to you guys task forces. Look at that, you got the fucking photographer here. You got the SWAT guys. You got the task force guys, and then you got the detectives, right? So you got, these two detectives more than likely, I'm willing to bet, are the case detectives, okay? And the case detective is the guy that's running the case on the New York side that's running this investigation, right? Then you got these SWAT guys. And you got these task force officers. Now, they're probably wondering, man, what the fuck is a task force officer? And why are these guys wearing FBI, NYPD, JTF raid jackets? Well, the reason why, guys, is so federal law enforcement agencies often have task forces, okay? And when they have these task forces, what ends up happening is you have something called task force officers. A task force officer, also known as a TFO, right? They have their state authority or whatever authority they have with their agency while simultaneously being able to have federal authority. So task force officers, guys, are a great way to get more bodies, more resources, more law enforcement personnel in your agency to help you out while simultaneously being able to use their different authorities and jurisdictional authorities to your advantage. I'll give you guys an example. So let's go into a dream scenario. So let's say as an FBI special agent, right, you have just the authorities that are given to you federally through, federal mandates for the FBI. But you can't do traffic stops, you can't enforce state laws, you can't give out citations, you can't do a lot of things that state law enforcement officers can do. Okay, this is why you bring in people that work with these state agencies, maybe NYPD, state police, etc., because they have resources that the feds don't have. Right? As you guys can see, the NYPD has enormous amount of resources. We're talking SWAT teams, helicopters, all this shit. The feds typically don't have this. K-9 units, bomb squads, all that shit. So when you have these guys embedded within your agency, you can use their resources, and those guys have the authority to do federal cases as well as do state cases because they're deputized and basically carry around FBI credentials, and they're able to assist. Right? And there's many different task forces that encompass different law enforcement agencies. The biggest one that the FBI has is something called the JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force, not to be confused with the JTF. This is a different squad, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, but I'm using the JTTF example for you guys because that's the most common. And a Joint Terrorism Task Force, guys, JTTF, is a task force that works together to combat terrorism, right? And you have agencies from all over the country. You got HSI there, my former agency. You got FBI, obviously, as the lead. You got NYPD there. You're going to have the state police there. You're going to have State Department, Secret Service, DEA, ATF. Everybody is there, okay? Absolutely covering, everybody's there. So that's what a Joint Terrorism Task Force is. Now, this case, this JTF, this is more than likely the Safe Streets Task Force, which we're going to talk about in the complaint. So they're walking them around, right? And there was probably an agreement that it's only going to be NYPD. And you can see, look, the mayor of New York right there as well, right? And you know what? Another reason why I don't think the FBI was there, guys, like FBI agents, was because for those of you that are aware, it's Eric Adams, if I'm not mistaken, he's under indictment right now. He's literally, he's under indictment right now by the FBI for accepting money from the Turkish government. So, yeah. Also, guys, do me a favor. We got 2,500 y'all watching right now on Fed Reacts. It's happy to have you here. Do me a solid, guys. Please like the video. And damn, we got more viewers than usual. I might have to start streaming this shit on weekdays at 5 p.m. Goddamn. But yeah, guys, like the video. Let's hit 2,000 likes. Now, another reason, right, because this got a lot of criticism for having a lot of people following him. The other reason, too, guys, why they did it this way is because, for those that are unaware, a lot of people on the left actually support Mangione, FYI. A lot of people support this guy. So they were worried that someone might try to break him out. Someone might try to, you know, fight the cops and get him out of custody. Someone might try to assassinate him, obviously, with the high profile of this case. So, you know, there are some risks with running a perp walk like this. Obviously, the NYPD are clout chasers. They want to get the, you know, their notoriety and everything else like that because they worked really hard to fight to get this guy. But at the same time, they don't want any vigilantes coming out and trying to save this guy because a lot of people actually support Mangione, right? A lot of people look at it like, yo, this guy killed a corrupt, you know, CEO for insurance, and we all know that health insurance is a big problem in the United States. You have a lot of people that aren't covered or they are covered, and these insurance companies work really hard to not necessarily pay out. So, you know, this is something that's a problem in the United States. So a lot of people actually empathize with this guy. So you got detectives, SWAT, task force officers from the FBI there. But it's all NYPD. All NYPD. And the mayor, even. Only NYPD. Look at that. Big press run. They took him to a federal court. I'm willing to bet that this land here that they're bringing him on is probably NYPD property. Another reason as well. Which, just so you guys know, NYPD is the biggest police department in the world. I think they got 40,000 sworn in officers. 30 to 40,000. Biggest police department in the world, bro. Crazy. All right. So now, here is the criminal complaint, guys. Here's the federal criminal complaint here. All right. I pulled this thing off Pacer, or actually, well, it's on Pacer, and also you can get it from on the actual website here, right? Because they have the complaint here with the hyperlink. So we're gonna read through this thing, all right? Old school Fed Reacts type shit. We're gonna read through this thing and kind of break it down and react to a video. So criminal complaint, right? We've talked about this before, but I'll go ahead and rehash you guys for those that are unaware. There's three main ways to get charged in the United States federally: via criminal complaint, indictment, or an information. Those are three main ways that you're going to be arrested in the United States federally. Now, a criminal complaint is basically a complaint supported by an affidavit sworn by an FBI agent or HSI or whatever. I've written hundreds of these things when I was on a job. So basically what ends up happening is I like criminal complaints because you can actually read all the probable cause in the case. So it's really good for kind of figuring out how the hell the cops came onto this guy. All right. So let me move my mug to up top here so we can go through this document. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. And guys, just so you know, if you guys want to get involved in the show, you could, I'm live streaming on Rumble and on YouTube, you can go ahead and go fnfsuperchat.com, right? I'll put that right here. There it is. You can super chat through there. You can super chat via Rumble Rant, if you're watching on Rumble. If you're watching on YouTube, fnfsuperchat.com. And yeah, let's keep going. And let me make sure I didn't miss anybody here. We got here, Juice Crewneck says, old school fed it. Absolutely, you know it, bro. We're going to go ahead and read through this complaint. I'm going to give you guys my professional background on a lot of this shit and educate you guys. Are you traveling solo to Arizona? Will you IRL stream while you're out there? Yeah, I'm traveling by myself. I might do some videos, guys, but I'm not going to IRL stream. Okay. Okay, so United States District, Southern District of New York, United States of America, 18 U.S.C. 2261A, 2261B, 924J, and 924C, okay? So basically, as you guys know, 18 U.S.C. is criminal, like 18 U.S.C., and then 924, this is going to be a gun charge here, and this is probably stalking and murder. So, okay, so here we go. Count 1, stalking, travel, interstate commerce, right? Count 2, stalking, use of interstate facilities, okay? And then count 3, murder through the use of a firearm. Here, this basically is saying that he used a phone during the commission of the crime, which affects interstate commerce. And then count 1, travel and interstate commerce. As you guys remember, he took a Greyhound bus from, if I'm not mistaken, from Georgia all the way up to New York. Guys, we only got 335 likes, guys. Do me a favor. Let's get to 1,000. Come on, man. Ain't nobody gonna give you guys a better breakdown on this shit than me. So let's go ahead and like the video. And let's get this thing cooking, all right? So, and count 4, firearms offense. Count 3, murder through use of firearm. Cool. So this is the agent that wrote this affidavit. His name is Gary W. Cobb, being duly sworn, deposed, and states that he's a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and charges as follows. All right. I'm a special agent of the FBI and am assigned to the FBI's Violent Crimes Task Force. Okay, what is the Violent Crimes Task Force? So I've talked about this before on other podcasts, but I'm going to assume we have a lot of new people here. So in every major city in the United States, guys, there's an FBI field office. And a lot of these FBI field offices have something called the JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force, and they're also going to have a Violent Crimes Task Force, also known as a Safe Streets Task Force. Typically, they're the same, right? But these groups, violent crimes task forces, or squads as the FBI calls them, typically investigate any type of violent crime. They typically will do, depending on the size of the group and the size of the city, they'll do bank robberies, they'll do gang violence, they'll do organized crime that facilitates some type of violence, shootings, all that stuff. If I'm not mistaken, it was LA Violent Crimes that did the little Dirk case, which, by the way, Dirk is, oh man. If you guys want to know some more about the Dirk case, I covered this in detail on another episode of Fed Reacts. I also gave my take on it with academics. So I've been personally involved in the investigation of this matter. This affidavit is based on my conversations with other law enforcement officers, my examination of documents obtained through a court-authorized search warrant. That's important. Okay, that's really important that they went ahead and they got search warrants. My review of documents prepared by others, security camera video, and my involvement in this investigation. Because the affidavit is being submitted for the limited purpose of establishing probable cause, it does not include all the facts that I have learned through the course of my investigation. Okay, what does that mean? That means, guys, that everything that we're going to read is just some of the stuff that they know. It's not everything, okay? They only give enough, bare minimum required, to get probable cause, get a judge to sign it, get the arrest warrant, and get the guy into the fucking court system, okay? Because keep in mind, when you are arrested by a criminal complaint in the United States of America, you also need to be indicted. And an indictment is a formal charge. A criminal complaint just kind of starts the process, right? And it's typically done when you don't have time to indict. You got the guy in your custody, he's here, you want to make something happen, you write that, the agent writes the criminal complaint, file the affidavit, give it to the judge signs it, boom, you can put him into the court system, right? But when you have time, you'd like to indict. So they're gonna have to indict him probably within 14 days here, okay? Where the contents of documents and actions, statements, and conversations of others are reported here and they're reported substance and in part, except where otherwise indicated. What does that mean? That means everything, when I tell you something, it's summarized. It's not everything, all right? And that's kind of a CYA, cover your own ass. Okay, let's start getting into it. Based on my participation in investigation, my conversation of the law, okay, we know that. All right, on December 4th, 2024, at approximately 6:45 a.m., Brian Thompson, the victim, the CEO of Nationwide Health Insurance Company, Company One, was shot and killed by a mass assailant, the shooter. All right, so now we know that, and this is what Company One is basically Nationwide Health. And then the shooter is going to be referred to as Luigi, right? Mangione. While walking on West 54th Street toward a hotel in Midtown Manhattan, the Midtown Hotel, where Company One investor conference was scheduled to begin at 8 a.m. As discussed below, the shooter was later identified as Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant. Security cameras showed the shooter, who was wearing a gray backpack, come from between two parked cars, walk up behind the victim and shoot the victim in the leg and back outside of the Midtown Hotel's entrance on West 54th Street. The firearm the shooter used appeared to have a sound-suppressing device or silencer attached to the front of its barrel. A still image from the security video of the shooting is provided below. And this is obviously the iconic photo that everyone references, right? All the time. Law enforcement personnel who responded to the scene of the shooting recovered, among other items, spent 9mm shell casings and at least one round of 9mm ammunition. The words "deny, delay, and depose" were written on the side of some of the shell casings. Responding law enforcement personnel also recovered a cell phone in the vicinity of the location where the shooting had occurred. So now they're going to go into the case. And he's going to repeat himself. Look, this stuff came from me discussing with other law enforcement officers. Because, guys, keep in mind, the FBI more than likely came in after the fact and worked with the NYPD alongside them because they were probably going to run this case as a state case. Now, I called this. I don't think I missed when it comes to Fed Reacts. Have I missed yet? I don't know if I have. The thing is that with this case, the state, this is a murder case, so the state almost always runs first and then the feds are going to follow because we know that there's not really federal murder statutes like that. You need to trigger some other federal nexus to get a murder charge, which is why they're saying, hey, he traveled to interstate commerce, right? He affected interstate commerce by traveling, so now we could get him for murder. And then they're also using the stalking, which we're going to talk about that stalking charge here in a second as well. By the way, guys, we only got 419 likes. Let's get to 1,000 and let's get to 1,000. I don't want to hold the show hostage. Just like the video, so we can keep cooking here. Okay. So from that review, investigators were able to formulate the following timeline of the shooter's movements from November 24th up to and including December 4th, 2024. As you guys know, Mangione spent approximately 10 days in New York. So we're going to go through this. November 24th, 2024. On November 24, 2024, at approximately 10:11 p.m., the shooter arrived in New York City on an intercity bus at the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan. The bus originated in Atlanta, Georgia. The shooter took a taxi to the area around the Midtown Hotel and stayed in the area for approximately 1 hour before taking another taxi to a hostel located in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. The shooter registered at the hostel under the name Mark Rosario and provided a false New Jersey driver's license as a form of identification, the false New Jersey ID. And this is going to come later. That's why they're putting this in parentheses, by the way. Anytime you read a criminal complaint like this, guys, or an affidavit, and they label it something like this, that means you're going to see it later on in the document. Pro tip right there. A photograph of the false New Jersey ID is provided below. And you guys can see here, this was what he used when he checked into the hostel, right? When the shooter was checking in at the hostel, the desk clerk asked the shooter to remove his mask, which he did, revealing his face to a security camera as shown below, right? This is when he was allegedly flirting with the girl. Other than this interaction with the desk clerk, the shooter consistently kept his mask on throughout his time in New York, including while inside the hostel. Now, I know some of you guys are like, Myron, what the fuck? Like, how did this guy get around and have his mask on the whole time and no one gave a shit? Guys, in New York, people are woke weirdos, okay? If you walk around New York with a mask on, no one's going to say anything to you. It's a liberal city. It's a liberal state. People still wear masks in 2024. I know. But people are weird like that, bro. It is what it is. Okay. Let's keep cooking. Other than that, this interaction with the desk clerk, okay, sorry. So now we're going into December 4th, right? So for 10 days, this nigga was just hanging out in New York, right? Probably hitting on some girls, traveling, taking pictures, you know, touring, all that, right? On December 4th, 2024, approximately 5:35 a.m., the shooter left the hostel wearing the gray backpack and rode an electric bicycle down Central Park to a location near Midtown Hotel as shown below. And for some of you guys that are unaware, in major cities, these electric bikes are very common. New York has them, Boston has them, they have them. People rent them out. You can use your credit card and just like basically, you know, or a debit card, whatever, and ride that thing. Pause. Guys, like the video. 1,000 likes. We only got 400 y'all niggas, 465. Come on, we should be at 1,000. We got 2,300 you guys watching on YouTube, and then like another 500 or 600 watching on Rumble on the Fed Reacts channel. All right. So let's keep going. So here's the pictures of him, right? And guys, just so you guys know too, New York, they got cameras everywhere, bro. They got cameras everywhere in New York City because crime is so rampant and there's a lot of shootings. So they have these cameras all over the place. At approximately 5:41 a.m., the shooter walked around the area of the Midtown Hotel and at one point purchased items from a nearby coffee shop. We know that's the Starbucks, right? The shooter then returned to a bench in the vicinity of the Midtown Hotel. On at least one occasion prior to the murder, the shooter was depicted using a cell phone. At approximately 6:45 a.m., after waiting near the Midtown Hotel for approximately an hour, the shooter saw and approached the victim, shot the victim multiple times, and then fled on foot to West 55th Street, where the shooter mounted the electric bicycle and rode towards Central Park. After disappearing inside the park for a period of time, the shooter was captured on video again exiting the park near West 77th Street and Central Park West, riding north on Central Park West. When he emerged from the park, the shooter was no longer carrying the gray backpack as shown below. Right? So he comes out on the bike, no backpack, right? At approximately 6:58 a.m., security camera footage captured the shooter riding the electric bicycle near West 85th Street and Columbus Avenue. 2 minutes later, at approximately 7 a.m., the shooter was captured on video walking near West 86th Street and Columbus Avenue without the electric bicycle, right? So at approximately 7:04 a.m., the shooter entered a taxi that drove him to the George Washington Bridge bus terminal in the vicinity of West 179th Street and Fort Washington Avenue in Upper Manhattan. The shooter's face was captured by a camera in a taxi as shown below. And here he is with the mask, those bushy eyebrows. At approximately 7:30 a.m., the video footage from the George Washington Bridge bus terminal captured the shooter entering the facility. No video footage showed the shooter leaving the bus terminal, suggesting that the shooter left New York City. On or about December 6, 2024, law enforcement officers searching Central Park found a gray backpack matching the appearance of the gray backpack worn by the shooter as depicted below. And you guys remember when we covered this case, when this originally happened, they were looking for the murder weapon, they were searching the area for the backpack. It took them a bit to find it because they were like, what the hell's going on? What did he leave in that park, right? And here's the backpack when they found it. The arrest and identification of the shooter. And for the, I don't know why he didn't mention the complaint, but they found Monopoly money in the backpack. So obviously, what is that? To taunt the police, right? Which, that was his way of saying, yeah, fuck you guys. All right. The arrest and identification of the shooter. Right, and again, he says this is based on my participation in the investigation. Because again, guys, a lot of this work was done by the NYPD, and the FBI kind of came in to assist and was able to tack on federal charges. On December 9, 2024, at approximately 9:14 a.m., a worker at a fast food restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania, called the police about a male customer later identified as Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, who the worker believed resembled photos of the shooter that had been broadcast in the media following the victim's murder. Members of the Altoona Police Department responded and encountered Mangione, who they also believed matched the appearance of the shooter. Let me make sure here. And shout out to all you guys watching the show right now on Rumble, YouTube, etc. Love y'all ninjas. CastleClub. Shout out to all you guys. And guys, again, like the video. Let's get this thing up in the algorithm because it's going to be the best breakdown of this case on YouTube. When approached by responding officers and asked for identification, Mangione offered the false New Jersey ID. Guys, why is this important? Because that is the same ID that he used to check into the hotel as shown earlier, right? Now, what are the chances you're going to find somebody in a fucking McDonald's hundreds of miles away in Pennsylvania with the same fake ID? Come on, man. There ain't no college campus there. He ain't trying to get into no bar. So, and he's of age. So, yeah. That was a big one, all right? Mangione was later found to be in possession of a loaded 9mm pistol and silencer consistent with the weapon used to kill the victim, clothing that matched the apparel that the shooter wore in the security camera videos, a notebook, the notebook. Again, guys, pro tip, when they mention the complaint one time and they put a thing like that, parentheses, means it's going to get mentioned again. Several $1,000s in cash, an envelope associated with an FDIC-insured bank, and a letter addressed to the feds. The Fed letter. Could have got away with it if it wasn't for that meddling fucking McDonald's employee. The 9mm pistol and silencer were later tested and found to be operable by a ballistics examiner from the New York City Police Department. Photographs of the firearm and silencer recovered from Mangione are depicted below. And if I'm not mistaken, this was a ghost gun, guys. Right? So, yeah, crazy. And, well, basically, guys, this kind of was an issue when I was on a job back in the day. These ghost guns, you basically get parts from all over the place, and you assemble the gun, right? And that might explain why every time he shot, he had to reload. If you guys remember, when he was shooting the weapon, he had to constantly, not reload, excuse me, pull the slide back, right, to eject the round. So, because it kept getting jammed. And this happens with these ghost guns because it's not properly manufactured. You're getting parts from all over the place, putting it together. You know what I mean? It's just like a fucking jumble fuck. So what ends up happening, excuse me, is the gun isn't operable on an optimal level, right? The notebook contains several handwritten pages that express hostility towards the health insurance industry and wealthy executives in particular. For example, the notebook contained the following statements and entries that appear to correspond to particular dates. In an entry marked as of 8/15, the notebook, August 15th, described how the details are finally coming together and, quote, I'm glad in a way that I've procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about acronym for Company One. The notebook also stated that the target is insurance because it checks every box. In an entry marked as 10/22, October 22nd, the notebook stated, 1.5 months, this investor conference is a true windfall, and most importantly, the message becomes self-evident. Later on in the entry, the notebook describes an intent to whack the CEO of one of the insurance companies at its investor conference. As described above, October 22nd, 2024 was approximately 6 weeks before the date of the murder of the victim, which occurred on the date of Company One's investor conference. Holy. This nigga's cooked. Oh, man. Wow. Yeah, he's cooked. For all you guys that said, oh, he didn't do it, he's going to win? Yeah, okay, bro.
Stupid.
Holy. The Fed's letter recovered from Mangione stated, I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial. Some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. Based on my own research, I believe that CAD refers to computer-aided design. The Fed letter also stated, P.S. You can check serial numbers to verify this is all self-funded. My own ATM withdrawals. Based on all of the above, my review of photographs of the shooter and my review of arrest photographs of Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, I respectfully submit that Mangione is a shooter who shot and killed the victim on December 4, 2024. Additionally, the notebook entries, the Fed's letter, the shooter's apparent surveillance of the Midtown Hotel on November 24, 2024, and December 4, 2024. Remember, guys, the first day he got there, he spent some hours there. And the shooter's use of counter-surveillance techniques and escape from New York City all suggest that the shooter undertook extensive efforts to identify the victim, place the victim under surveillance, and track the victim's whereabouts in the time period leading up to the murder. Below are surveillance stills of the shooter and arrest photograph of Mangione. On the left, arrest photograph Mangione. On the right, shooter at the hostel. Right, showing that they look similar. Wherefore, I respectfully request that a warrant be issued for the arrest of Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, and that he be in prison or bailed as the case may be. Gary C.W. Cobb, Special Agent, Federal Bureau of Investigation. And you can see that the judge signed it. So, yeah, that's quite a bit of evidence in a very short complaint here. Very, very interesting stuff. So, and again, you guys are probably wondering, yo, Myron, are you capping, bro, when you say that people would like this guy and were fans? Well, let's go ahead. Look at this shit. Look at these supporters.
We are here because I have been personally affected by my health care and my inability to get health care because of my insurance and
man,
frankly terrible American healthcare system.
Universal health care now or free Luigi?
And privatized healthcare is a crime against humanity.
Yo, he has fans, guys.
Every other country, every other industrialized country on the planet has it.
Has socialized
So
housing.
I don't think we would struggle that much to find one that would work for us.
The systematic murder is the same as murder with a gun. There's no difference.
Wait, what? This nigga say?
Struggle that much to find one that would work for us.
The systematic murder is the same as
Ben Friedman.
murder with a gun. There's no difference. So someone has to have much more than shows that my life to sit in jail for it.
So, as y'all can see here, he has a lot of supporters.
But it's killing.
A lot of loonies on the left.
That while murder is not something that needs to be glorified in any way, the health insurance industry is oppressive to people. It is violent. It inserts itself as a paywall between people and care, and we need to recognize that. It's been brought to our attention as a populace now, and I just want to take this moment and push for more recognition of needed change in policy. I think it's important to recognize
Wearing the mask as well. Anyway, yeah. So the point is, you can see here that we got some weird individuals that are on this shit, right? Also, guys, do me a favor. Please like the video. We only got 576 likes. Let's get to 1,000. Let's get to 1,000, guys. Like that video. Just smash that like button. It helps a lot with the algorithm. All right? Helps a lot. So, let's see here. So, we're going to go ahead and react to this video. All right? This comes from the Law and Crime. And I wanted to go through the criminal complaint with you guys first so you guys are aware. And because we're going to talk about the criminal complaint quite a bit here. So let's go ahead.
Back in New York right now, the same bustling city where police say Mangione laid in wait for the CEO of United Healthcare to walk by before shooting him in.
I got it at 1.25 speed chat. This should be good. Let's go ahead and put this shit. Boom. All right, let's get into it.
Back and killing him. Now, not only does he face criminal charges in both Pennsylvania and New York State, he faces federal charges too. And the newly unsealed federal complaint is giving us a look at a potential motive behind the seemingly targeted attack. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey guys, so this is pretty scary. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty? United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson officially back in New York City after he waived extradition this morning at the courthouse in Blair County, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is where, of course, he was apprehended days after the shooting of Thompson outside of the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Remember, Mangione was arrested in McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And when he was arrested, law enforcement apparently found this 3D gun, this 9mm pistol, silencer, suppressor in his possession as well, which authorities say all of this was consistent with the weapon that was used to kill Brian Thompson. And also found on him is what's believed to be the fake ID that he allegedly used to check into a New York hostel in the days before the murder. So what happened? Mangione arrived handcuffed in a bright orange gel jumpsuit. According to a New York Times reporter in the room, Mangione gave short answers to the judge when asked if he understood what he was agreeing to. The report from the Times also noted that Mangione was very expressive at the defense table, nodding, shrugging, raising, lowering his eyebrows. And in Pennsylvania, Mangione is charged with possession of an unlicensed firearm, forgery, and providing false identification to police. But he really faces the more serious charges in New York. So state charges, he faces 11 in total. He's charged with 3 counts of murder, including first-degree murder committed in furtherance of terrorism. That could mean life in prison if he's convicted. He's also facing second-degree murder, 2 second-degree murder charges. One of them also is in relation to
Keep in mind, this is from the state, guys.
terrorism. But here's the thing. When Mangione was brought back to New York, he didn't appear in state court to face state charges. No, 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 no. He appeared in federal court. Why? Because he is now facing federal charges as well. The complaint charges him, this federal complaint that was unsealed, charges him with 4 crimes: stalking, travel in interstate commerce; stalking, use of interstate facilities; murder through use of a firearm; and a firearms offense. And by the way, this is a complaint. Obviously, there will need to be a grand jury indictment. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But after the hearing in Pennsylvania, Mangione left the courthouse in the custody of officers. From there, he was put on a chartered plane, flown straight to New York City. He touched down, reporting indicates, in Long Island, was transported via helicopter to New York City. And based on reporting and photos...
And the feds absolutely helped with getting him there quicker. You know what I mean, with the federal arrest warrants
that were released, he was heavily guarded by law enforcement. In fact, according to CNN chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst John Miller, quote, "The security around Mangione today is because of what they've been seeing in terms of the public support for him."
A lot of people on the left support this guy, guys. A lot of people. You know, and obviously it did bring up the conversation about healthcare in the United States. I talked about this last episode, but I'll quickly bring it up for all my foreign people out there. You know, we don't have universal healthcare here, so you are at the mercy of these health insurance companies, and these health insurance companies, they're there to make money. And unfortunately, to make money, they're not really interested in giving you coverage, because for them to give you coverage, that means that they got to pay money. So what ends up happening is insurance, right, is the only business really where they do everything in their power to not give you the service that you pay for. They have auditors, forensic auditors, investigators, etc. They do everything in their power to not actually pay the claim. So, you know, a lot of people feel that this is a problem in the country, and obviously this wasn't the best way to go about it with this guy, Luigi Mangione, but he did bring up something, did bring to light a conversation that we've, you know, kind of somewhat ducked in America. So, yeah. And a lot of people, a lot of liberals love this guy, especially the thotties. They love this nigga, man. So who knows what would have happened, which is why they had him under such intense law enforcement security. And also they're responsible for safety too. They can't let anybody kill him either, right? They don't want anybody breaking him out or anyone trying to kill him.
And their security worries about somebody not trying to attack him, but to try and free him from law enforcement. That's an interesting perspective, because that could definitely be the case, given this large outpouring of support for Mangione and the killing of Thompson. You know, you've seen this amongst a certain segment of the population, those who have this resentment towards the health insurance industry, United Healthcare and or corporate America. But that didn't stop New York City Mayor Eric Adams from being one of the people who actually escorted.
And as you guys know, he got indicted himself by the FBI a couple months back. I actually covered it here on Fed Reacts if you guys want to go check it out. We got Jabriel says from CastleClub says, "I thought we was having a clan meeting too." Yeah, that's gonna be the Fresh Fit episode, bro. W Old School Fed it. Appreciate that. I read that one, I think, already though.
Mangione after he landed in that helicopter. In remarks today, Mayor Adams said the act of terrorism, the violence that stems from Mangione's case, is something that will not be tolerated in the city. We wanted to personally be here to show the symbolism of leading from the front. He added, "A person that uses a gun to solve a concern, if
my man wants that pardon.
It's on a school campus or on our streets, there are mechanisms in this country for how to organize around those issues of concern." And he also said, "You don't use a gun." So this hearing in federal court in the Southern District of New York happened. And what happened? Well, Mangione confirmed to the judge that he understands his rights, that he's seen the federal complaint. His attorneys apparently didn't fight for bail, as prosecutors were asking he be detained pending trial.
Yeah, he is not going to get bond. No fucking way. That's just a waste of time to even have a bail or any of that shit. Which, oh, by the way, guys, 640 likes. Let's hit 1,000. I don't want to have to stop the show, chat. Come on, man. Let's hit 1,000.
But the defense said, "We reserve our right to argue this at a later date." So to talk more about the details revealed in the federal complaint and a lot more, I want to bring on friend of the show, former prosecutor, current criminal defense attorney, Serena Townsend. Serena, thank you so much for coming on Cyber. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so Serena, parts of the complaint confirmed information that we had seen reporting on, and other parts kind of gave us new details. I'll get to that in a minute. But before we even get to all of that, I got to ask you about these federal charges here, because my understanding is this could bring the death penalty. So I first want to start, and that's with respect to the murder charge. I'll get to that in a second. I first have to ask your opinion about the stalking charges. So we have the first stalking.
Okay, this is important because the stalking charge is kind of going to be the foundation of all the other charges.
Charge that is centered around him allegedly traveling in interstate commerce, namely that he went from Georgia to New York with the intent to kill and placed Thompson under surveillance with the intent to kill him. And then we have count 2, stalking with the intent to kill and placing him under surveillance with the intent to kill, and that Mangione allegedly used an electronic communication service and system of interstate commerce and a facility, namely using a cell phone and internet to plan and carry out the stalking, the shooting and killing of Thompson. A lot of words I threw out there, but basically what we're saying is these 2 federal...
And like I explained this to you guys before, the feds typically don't take murder cases unless, well, number 1, they're high profile like this, and then 2, it affects interstate commerce to some degree. It needs to affect interstate commerce for the feds to come in and take it, because typically murder cases almost always go to the state.
Charges of stalking with the intent to kill. What do you make of those?
Listen, honestly, I think it's a stretch. And, usually I wouldn't say that. Usually the feds, before they bring any kind of complaint or indictment, they have a very strong case normally, especially SDNY.
And this woman, former prosecutor and defense attorney, so, this is a good take to get.
But here's the thing.
And she even said it, SDNY, Southern District of New York, very aggressive United States Attorney's Office, high success rate.
The stalking charges have an element that must be proven, and that includes that he placed Brian Thompson in reasonable...
And guys, keep in mind, you got FBI in New York, right? They're running the case as the law enforcement agency on the federal side. Then you have the United States Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York, that's running the prosecution. And then obviously you also have NYPD, who has an open criminal case, and they're also are pursuing New York State charges. So he's being charged in by 2 different offices, both state and federal, by 2 different law enforcement agencies. But keep in mind also that there's NYPD guys on the FBI Violent Crime Task Force, right? As well, that were involved in getting this guy. Right? Does that make sense? Give me ones in the chat if that makes sense, guys. And then there's also charges on him in Pennsylvania for having like a fake ID and the weapons possession and stuff like that. Give me ones if this makes sense in the chat. And if it doesn't, give me 2s and why it doesn't make sense.
Fear of death. I don't know that they're going to be able to prove that element. I think, look, if they prove that Luigi is Luigi and this is the right guy, I think they check almost every box of those elements of the stalking charges. But again, and if you even think of it as a layperson, that's what stalking is, right? It's that fear. You're looking behind your back. There's this guy who won't leave me alone. He's stalking me. He's making me fear my life. I don't know that they're going to be able to make out that element. Even in the video of the shooting that we saw, Brian Thompson does not seem like he's in fear. He seems like he got shot in the back without knowing it was coming.
Just to be clear, you're saying in order for a stalking charge to work, the victim or the alleged victim has to know they're being surveilled?
So this is big. This is big, and this is actually a good point that she's bringing up. That Thompson had to have known, or at least be under some type of knowledge that he was being stalked or was in fear of his life.
Essentially, one of the elements in those 2 stalking charges is that he placed that person in reasonable fear of death. And I don't know that they're really going to be able to prove that Brian Thompson feared his death. And I know it seems like just a technicality, but there is a reason for certain charges to be able to be charged and met. And I just don't know that they're going to get there. I am curious about what they found on the websites and on the internet usage that he had, because I know that they referenced the fact that he was on a cell phone. They apparently had seen him on a cell phone during their, when they found surveillance footage of what they claim is him. But I don't know that they know the content of that phone call. I don't know what they know. They will probably have to seize his electronic, the electronics that they're relying on, the cell phone and whatever laptop computers that he was using, to be able to determine what he was doing and make out the interstate commerce part of those elements too.
Interesting, really interesting perspective on that. By the way, one of the interesting things was according to the FBI agent's affidavit that accompanied this complaint, it says that Mangione took a bus to the Port Authority bus station, but it's still unclear from the complaint if police knew where Mangione got on the bus. I mean, they say that he traveled from Georgia here, but that particular route, I always thought the reporting was the bus originated in Atlanta. We just didn't know exactly where he jumped on from, but maybe we'll learn a little bit more about that. I do want to move on to the murder charge, though. So the federal murder charge, your thoughts on this? So let me lay it out here. The federal murder charge, my understanding, says that Mangione, during the alleged stalking, used and carried a firearm to kill Thompson and ended up killing him. Again, my understanding is the reason they want this is because this carries the death penalty. So talk to me about whether or not this charge...
Yeah, and that's a big deal, the fact that it carries the death penalty as well. But that is important to note that Thompson had to have potentially known. Now, here's the thing also, okay? Speculating here. But keep in mind, guys, that they did a search warrant on Thompson's hotel room. Okay? So that's super important, because what that means is, who knows if they found documents that showed that he was in danger for his life. Maybe he had gotten threats from Mangione prior, right? We know that Mangione had that little manifesto where he was talking about this shit since the fucking summertime. So who knows if Mangione didn't threaten him, or if Thompson didn't know that this guy was, you know, this crazy individual was following him. Who knows? Okay? Again, remember that criminal complaint only shows what they want to show, right? The bare minimum for probable cause. So it's possible that Thompson potentially felt as though his life was in danger, but we don't know, because we know that the police did a search warrant at his hotel room, but we don't know what the contents were. Also, I think it's important to note that he mentioned in the complaint, right, going back to it, remember, we caught this earlier, he goes, right here, so my examination of documents obtained through a court-authorized search warrant, right? So he didn't go specific what search warrant he's talking about, but I know for a fact that they did a search warrant at this dude's house. The CEO's hotel room.
Holds water in your eyes.
So truthfully, I don't think any of the charges hold water, simply because all 4 of the charges rely on that stalking being made out.
Now that's very important. The stalking holds up all the other charges.
And again, I know it's that technicality, right? But every single one of the charges either are for stalking or rely on the stalking. Even the murder charge says that while committing the act of stalking, the crime of stalking, he did X, Y, and Z. I really do think that they're going to have some trouble with this. That being said, yes, the death penalty technically is on the table with that charge. And if they can prove all of the elements of that charge, technically he could be facing the death penalty, although it is rare that that does happen.
Wouldn't an argument be, it doesn't necessarily have to place the victim in reasonable fear of their life, but it could have if he knew what was going on? Or am I reading it too broadly? I mean, I hear what you're saying. I get it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the stalking that could be the problem here. And look, I know why the feds are doing this, right? It's similar to the murder terrorism charges at the state level. This is what this is saying. We are trying to deter anyone from doing something like this in the future, and that Mangione, they believe he did this, needs to be punished, that this was a unique, egregious murder that deserves the ultimate punishment. But you're suggesting, I mean, again, wouldn't they have known that? That's the only thing. I feel like, are we reading this too literally? Because...
Hey guys, we got 700 likes. We need 1,000. Come on guys, 300 more likes. We're almost there.
How would they be able to put forward that charge without... I mean, it seems like just on the reading of the statute, they should have known that. There's got to be something more here.
There could be. Listen, I'm a former prosecutor myself. I've seen prosecutors overcharge. I've seen things get overlooked in the idea of just kind of what you're saying, which is we just really want to get this guy. We think he deserves the worst, right? So... Well,
the AUSA's office typically doesn't miss. So again, I think they have something that we don't know about that shows that Thompson wasn't fear for his life and this stalking charge might stick. Because they're not going to just file a bullshit criminal complaint like that if they know they can't win. So we'll see. I'm interested to see. The indictment might cover some more information. But yeah.
Sometimes they just hope that it goes overlooked. Sometimes they use that in order to initiate or try to get a plea deal before a case gets dismissed or a charge gets dismissed. We have seen overcharging in the past, and look, those technicalities, we are reading it very literally, but the bottom line is, at the end of the day, when a case goes to trial and a judge reads charges to a jury, they read them very literally, and everything has a definition to it. That being said, we don't know everything, right? We know everything that's in the affidavit.
Yeah, I mean some blueberries, guys. Protein shake blueberries. You guys know how that goes. Got to get those micronutrients in, man.
David, and that is what they're using to try to establish probable cause. But they always say, and they do say in this affidavit too, we're not telling you everything. Is it possible that they have some sort of evidence that could substantiate the stalking that we don't know about yet? Of course. There's always a possibility that they know more than we do.
And by the way, just to be clear, from a procedural point of view, this was a federal criminal complaint. It still needs to go in front of a grand jury for him ultimately to be indicted, right? So a grand jury might look at this and agree with you.
That's true. They might. If they're listening, very specifically to the elements of the crime and they're not presented with the requisite evidence to get them to where they need to be, then sure, they could choose not to indict. Of course, we also have to remember an indictment relies on a burden of proof that's much lower than a trial burden of proof, which is beyond a reasonable doubt.
And the defense doesn't really have an opportunity to put on a defense in front of a grand jury. Okay, I have a question about this. Let's say federal charges move forward. Okay, let's say it doesn't have this, it meets this technical element. So according to CNN, and more specifically ABC, Danielle Filson, who is a spokesperson for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office of Alvin Bragg, this is the state prosecutors, not the federal, a statement was released that said the state case will proceed in parallel with any federal case. What does that mean? Who goes first? Who prosecutes Mangione first?
That's a really difficult thing to do. And I don't know if it's a little bit premature to say that. You don't want to step on anybody's toes. I would expect that the feds would have precedence here, that they would take the opportunity to move this case forward. If they're trying to say it's going to be parallel, that's fine. But there's a lot of.
Yeah, the feds are more than likely going to push this thing through way fast. In New York court, New York, the state case courts are almost notoriously fucking slow and unprofessional.
Coordination that would need to happen here. And I would expect that the feds would not necessarily love for the state to move forward in tandem with them, because they want to be able to control their prosecution. You don't necessarily want certain things to come out too early. You don't want to tip your hat. You don't want to show your cards to the other side. And I think personally, if it were me, I would strategize that a bit differently.
By the way, it's based on reporting that Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who's representing Mangione in New York, there's concerns, I think, that she's expressed with what we're seeing, that he was charged both with what some people could agree with you that these federal charges don't fit. Some people I've interviewed have suggested that the state charges, the murder terrorism charges, are overly aggressive. But I think what she was suggesting was it's strange that he's being charged both on a state level and a federal level so quickly in tandem. Are there any double jeopardy concerns?
I would definitely make that argument if I were his defense attorney.
That's a good point. Normally, what ends up happening with cases like this, guys, is typically one side will drop their case and let the other one kind of push. Typically, as a state will drop their case and let the feds take it, because the state almost always is inundated with cases. And, they're like, dude, the typical prosecutor, guys, at the state level is holding like 100 cases easily. And in New York City, I could only imagine how many cases. Keep in mind, guys, the state's doing everything. DUIs, domestic violence, loitering. They're doing every fucking case that comes through the city. So they're not going to mind, dropping a case like this a lot of the times. But since this case got such big news, they're probably fighting for it, to be honest with you guys. That's what I'm willing to bet. The feds in the state are probably fighting for this case, to be honest with you guys.
Is it a good argument, though?
I think it's a fair argument. I don't know that it wins the day, but I do think even just forget procedurally, just on a fairness and equity mindset, is it fair for somebody to be facing murder charges 2 times in 2 different kind of jurisdictions? It's New York, but it's federal and New York State, for the same act and for the same crime of murder. I think that double jeopardy was created for the exact reason, meaning the idea that you can't be prosecuted twice for the same thing and be punished twice for the same thing, was created for kind of this purpose. Just do it right. If he's the right one, prosecute him the right way. I do think you have the risk of turning off a jury or turning off, regular civilians who are watching this if you go overboard,
Well, the clear example would be if he was charged with murder at the state level and he is acquitted of murder at the state level, he can't be charged again with murder at the state level. There have been so many cases that we have covered where one instance, one event can be charged at both the state and federal level, and there are different charges. I mean, look at the Derek Chauvin case, right? That's a guy for killing George Floyd. He was prosecuted both ways, and I mean, I think it would be tough to argue that. I think you can have an overlap, but it's an argument that could be made. I just don't think it's necessarily would be a successful argument, but we'll see. I do have a question, though. I want to go through some of the details of what this complaint says, because we learned new information, things that we didn't know before. So first, the complaint did confirm that multiple 9mm shell casings that were found on the ground at the crime scene had the words "deny, delay, and depose" written on them. Okay. And while the federal filing does confirm that Brian Thompson is the CEO of a healthcare company, it doesn't actually identify which, but we know that Brian Thompson had been a rising star within United Healthcare, working his way to the top spot in that company over the last 20 years. And it also lays out a timeline. Okay, so let's talk about this. November 24th, the shooter checks in, arrives in New York City at 10:11 p.m. on a bus that originated from Atlanta, Georgia. The shooter stays in a hostel on the Upper West Side, registered at that hostel under the name Mark Rosario, allegedly provided a fake New Jersey driver's license. According to the complaint, other than this interaction with the desk clerk, the shooter consistently kept his mask on throughout.
Hey, man, he had to spit his G game there with that chick, man. Which, by the way, guys, also 770 likes. Come on, let's hit 800 to 800. Like the video, guys. As you guys know, the only thing I ask is that you guys support, like the video. You don't got to donate $1 to the stream, even though we're demonetized. But we're still doing better than a lot of our haters. Fuck the haters, which is hilarious. But yeah, guys, just like the video, man. That's all we need. Help this get pushed up in the algorithm, and more people can find the content. That's all I ask, man. Like the video. Smash that goddamn like button. I'll drop the link right now. If you're watching on Rumble, I'll also drop it there for you guys so you guys can like the video that are watching it on Rumble. CastleClub Ninjas, if you guys don't mind, 100 you guys in here, like the video, guys.
His time in New York, including while inside the hostel. And as we know, a surveillance photo from inside the hostel shows the suspect smiling at the desk clerk. That was one of the key pieces of evidence in identifying and locating Mr. Mangione. Now, it goes on to say that on the morning of December 4th, this is the day of the shooting, this FBI agent within this complaint says that Mangione left the hostel at around 5:35 a.m., rode an e-bike to the Hilton in Midtown Manhattan. Once he got there, law enforcement says surveillance cameras show him walking around for a while, getting a drink and snack at a coffee shop. We know that to be the Starbucks. And then went to sit on a bench. And also, it's confirmed that the shooter was depicted using a cell phone. We haven't got a ton of information about what he might have been looking at or doing on that cell phone. But from there, the complaint matches what NYPD was able to reveal from almost the beginning, that the shooter steps out from between two parked cars, ignoring other bystanders, and shoots Thompson in the leg and the back. And documents say that he walked across the street to an alley where it's believed he stashed that e-bike. Police say that's where they found, by the way, the phone, as well as a water bottle, a snack wrapper in the alley as well, which they have reportedly linked back to Mangione through fingerprint analysis. The shooter rides the bike into Central Park, but when he was caught on camera leaving the park, he was no longer wearing that gray backpack that he had on him. And NYPD officers were finally able to find that backpack in the park. That's the one that had the Monopoly money inside. Now, Mangione, again, if assuming he's the shooter, reportedly gets off the e-bike when he exits Central Park, takes a taxi to the George Washington Bridge bus terminal. That's where we get the now infamous photo of Mangione wearing a face mask and hood sitting in the back of the taxi. And that is when authorities knew that he'd likely left the city as soon as possible, because he was seen on surveillance camera going into the bus terminal but not coming out. December 9th. After evading capture for 5 days, the complaint says at approximately 9:14 a.m., a worker at a fast food restaurant in Altoona, Pennsylvania, aka the McDonald's, called the police about a male customer later identified as Luigi Nicholas Mangione, the defendant, who the worker believed resembled photos of the shooter that had been...
There's talk now that that McDonald's worker might not get the fucking award, which is crazy, bro.
...broadcast in the media following the victim's murder. And then the complaint includes a photo of what police said Mangione had on him on the time of his capture, a loaded 9mm pistol and silencer, again consistent with the weapon used to kill Brian Thompson. And in addition to a gun and silencer, there was also found this so-called manifesto. So Mangione was apparently found with a notebook full of handwritten pages. And this complaint now gives us some new details. It reads, the notebook contains several handwritten pages that expressed hostility towards the health insurance industry and wealthy executives in particular. For example, the notebook contained the following statements and entries that appear to correspond to particular dates. In an entry marked as 8/15, August 15th, the notebook described how the details are finally coming together, and I'm glad in a way that I've procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about, and then it's an acronym for Company One. The notebook entry also stated that the target is insurance because it checks every box. Then, you have an entry marked as 10/22. The notebook stated 1.5 months. This investor conference is a true windfall, and most importantly, the message becomes self-evident. Later on in the entry, the notebook describes an intent to whack the CEO of one of the insurance companies at its investor conference. And as described above, October 22nd, 2024, that was approximately 6 weeks before the date of the murder of the victim, which occurred on the date of Company One's investor conference. And then it goes on to say, the Fed's letter recovered from Mangione stated, I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial. Some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. Based on my own research, I believe that CAD refers to computer...
Yeah, and that right there, bro. Yo, they got way more evidence, guys. Just remember that this is just what they have, like, that they're putting in the complaint. They got way more shit. We haven't talked about the DNA, because remember, he left a water bottle there. They haven't talked about the phone. None of that stuff was mentioned in the criminal complaint. They have even more evidence.
Aided design. The Fed's letter also...
And I do think that there might have been another conspirator. Who the fuck was he talking to right before the murder?
Stated. P.S. You can check serial numbers to verify this is all self-funded, my own ATM withdrawal.
And the fact that he went out of his way to say, I did it myself, also leads me to believe that there was another conspirator.
So the FBI says that Mangione had several $1,000s in cash on him, by the way, when he was arrested in an envelope associated with a, quote, an FDIC-insured bank. A lot to break down there, Serena, but these alleged writings of Mangione, the shooter, my gosh, if you're talking about this being premeditated and planned, I mean, I could see how this could be a goldmine for prosecutors.
Yeah, I mean, the evidence that's found on him is quite damning. The problem, I think, with some of the charges is that you can't just rely on the premeditation. And we mentioned this a little bit earlier. Even the state charge of murder in the first degree requires more than just premeditation. They're essentially saying that he had to have committed this act as an act of terrorism, which is, you know, that's a very rare charge to be charged, even as a murder one. Usually when somebody's charged with murder in the first degree in New York, it's because they killed a cop or, you know, they killed a witness at trial, right? But going back to the evidence, it's true. They're going to use that evidence and, you know, things like the fake ID to connect him to the crime, to connect him to maybe a consciousness of guilt, and to try to establish the motive.
I will tell you that every charge he faces in terms of what's the most serious, and I hear your criticisms, and I think they're legitimate criticisms. Probably second-degree murder, just an intent to kill, that charge, the state charge, is probably the one that fits this the most. And by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, Serena, what, that carries 25 years to life in prison?
It does. That's the legitimate charge, you know, assuming that it is Luigi, you know, all of that stuff has to be proven too.
You saw this timeline and surveillance footage.
I have, but as a criminal defense attorney, you also have to make these arguments because the truth of the matter is...
Yeah, but they're going to go for murder one.
They did lose him in the park for 13 minutes. You know, you got to link up every single thing, and it is a circumstantial case. That being said, the evidence is...
No, they linked him with the DNA. Bro, what are y'all talking about? They linked him with the DNA and the fingerprints. That's hardcore physical evidence that puts him at the scene of the crime. Come on, guys.
Is pretty...
Law crime. Come on, guys. Come on. A lot of the evidence is hard physical evidence. Come on, man.
Damning at times. So there's an uphill battle there, but you're absolutely right. The charge that fits this case is a state charge, murder in the second degree.
And, look, and he will fight the fingerprints. He will fight the ballistics. You know, the idea that the gun he had in him matched the shell casings at the scene, that his fingerprints were found on these items found near the gun.
Well, that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard to fight too, because guys, remember when a gun is fired, right, and a bullet goes through the fucking barrel, what ends up happening is it spins a certain way, and it creates the grooves in the barrel create like almost like a signature on the bullet, okay, on the shell casing. And what ends up happening is that almost creates like a fingerprint for that gun. So if they're able to match that up, guys, that's pretty fucking definitive. So they got some hardcore physical evidence here. I think these two, they're undermining the strength of the evidence here. And again, the complaint doesn't list everything. They have more. Fingerprints matching, DNA is gonna match. If it doesn't already, if I'm not mistaken, from the water bottle. They got the phone stuff. We don't know what they got the search warrant out of this guy Thompson's house, which is maybe why they, Thompson's hotel room in New York. So that's might be why they might know about him, Mangione stalking him. So we'll see. Time will tell. But the cops know way more than we know. I'll tell y'all that.
Crime scene challenged the.
And then also we got the phone information too. They exploited that phone as well.
The legitimacy of that surveillance footage, is it really him? I get it. I do have a question for you before I let you go. So as we know, it's been reported that Karen Friedman Agnifilo is representing Mangione in New York. But now, since perhaps this has become, a federal case, there are outlets that have reported, like the Daily Beast and CNN, that her husband, New York federal criminal defense attorney Mark Agnifilo, the man currently representing Sean Diddy Combs in his federal criminal case in the Southern District of New York, he's jumped on board too. I mean, I thought at first when I heard this that, look, he's married to her, maybe he's just accompanying her to federal court, but he is a federal criminal defense attorney. And if this reporting is true, would it be strange that he would take Mangione on as a client too?
No, it wouldn't be strange at all. I myself am married to a federal criminal defense attorney. So, listen, yeah, exactly. And look, you need a team for this defense. That is for sure the case, and you need a talented team. And I actually don't think it would be smart to go at this completely solo, no matter who you are. This is gripping the nation, as you would say, right? This is the biggest case that we've seen in a very long time. The stakes are the highest they could ever be with the death penalty now on the table. You can't just have potentially, correct, yes. You cannot just have anybody represent you, and this is going to require an all-hands-on-deck, multiple attorney team, in my opinion.
And I'll just leave it with this. After court, Karen Friedman Agnifilo told reporters, we're going to respectfully decline to make any comment at this time. Mr. Mangione appreciates everyone's support. Serena Townsend, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Boom.
And everybody, that's all we have for you right now.
So, crazy case, guys. Crazy case. Do you guys like this Fed Reacts on Friday shit? Should I start doing this on Friday? Chat? You guys like this? You guys prefer the Friday or the Sunday? Let me know what y'all ninjas like. Oh, damn. You guys like this Friday better? Interesting. So Sunday, no streams then. You guys don't want anything on Sundays. All right, I'll do a poll. Dudes are saying both. If I get remonetized, maybe. All right, let me do a poll for you ninjas on here. Friday or Sunday, Fed Reacts. They can't be as long, but let me see. I did a poll on YouTube. Let's see what you guys say. Guys, if you don't mind, I'll drop the YouTube link for you guys as well. Go vote on YouTube, Rumble guys. And CastleClub guys, vote on YouTube as well, because I can only run a poll on YouTube, unfortunately. We need a poll on Rumble, man. Guys, we got 849 likes, by the way, on YouTube. Let's hit 1,000 ninjas. Let's hit 1,000. Oh, damn, it's almost 50-50 on this Sunday and Friday thing. I'll tell y'all this. If I get remonetized, I'll do both. I'll go back to what I used to do. I used to do Thursday Fed Reacts and Sunday Fed Reacts is what I used to do. Which, I might do that if, speaking of which, let me go ahead and look here. Okay, making sure I didn't miss any of you guys on CastleClub or anything like that. Damn, it looks like Friday is edging it out. Shout out to Rob G talking shit in the chat. Not sure why you're here if you're talking shit. I'll never understand that. Shout out to Nice Star. $5 says, Fed Reacts on Fridays, clam chowder on Sundays. Oh, man.
Here on Sunday.
Which actually something interesting came out with Mangione, his mom. Let's see this.
Handed this hot off the presses as I came in the studio. There is a federal indictment now, a sealed complaint, well, unsealed complaint. There are 4 charges in federal court, 2 charges.
How does all of this work, though? Because we have those state charges already. He was flown from Pennsylvania to New York just today. We can talk about extradition in a minute. But we already have those state charges, so what takes precedence here?
Right, well, so actually, it's usually sort of decided by the prosecutors, the federal prosecutors and the state prosecutors. They're going to talk to each other. I mean, they're not each doing this in a vacuum. So the federal complaint, the thing that's different about a federal complaint from a state complaint is in the federal system, there's actually a possibility of a death penalty in the federal system, which isn't true under New York state law. The state law, New York state doesn't have the death penalty, and so life in prison without parole was the maximum penalty under the state charges. The other thing that's different is it might make a difference as to where he's going to be housed.
We talked about some of
these
this.
Charges without having enough that they feel that they could yield a conviction, right?
Sure, typically the prosecutors, especially when you're talking about the federal prosecutors in the Southern District.
All right, let's go back. We talked about that already. Covered y'all. Let's see his mom.
Head twisted up onto this. Of doing something like this? Well, NYPD Chief of Detectives Joseph Kenney was asked about this at a news conference the other day when the indictment of Mangione was announced. Listen to what he had to say.
So the original missing report took place back in November 18th in San Francisco. The sergeant that was involved in that case reached out to the San Francisco field office and said, hey, basically, I'm working on a missing case. I saw the photograph that was distributed by the NYPD. There bears a resemblance. That tip was forwarded to us. Close to 40.
Remember, for those of you that don't know, his mom reported him missing back in like July. Because he kind of went off the grid. So, 891 likes, by the way, guys. Let's hit 1,000. 100 away, ninjas. Like the goddamn video.
5 hours after the incident took place, it showed up to a TFO, which is a task force officer. We have NYPD officers embedded with the FBI. They received that tip. It was one of 4 tips that they had received that day, and they were vetting it. Part of that vetting process was that they reached out to Mangione's mother in San Francisco very late on the 7th. They had a conversation where she didn't indicate that it was her son in the photograph, but she said it might be something that she could see him doing. So that information was going to be passed along to the detectives the next morning, but fortunately we apprehended him before we could act on that.
So why would that be the case, right? If she really said that, why? And remember, a friend of Mangione, Aaron Cranston, revealed to the New York Times that he received a message indicating that Mangione's family was looking for him. We know there was reporting that Mangione was becoming more and more isolated, potentially more extreme online. He had this online activity, seemed to reveal these odd ideological leanings. Particularly, I've cited this before, this Goodreads review from earlier this year of the manifesto of the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, in which Mangione apparently gave the book a 4-star rating. Now, Mangione's cousin, Nino Mangione, issued a statement on behalf of the family and made it clear that they didn't know anything prior to the news of his arrest. It said, "We cannot comment on news reports regarding Luigi Mangione. We only know what we've read in the media. Our family is shocked and devastated by Luigi's arrest. We offer our prayers to the family of Brian Thompson, and we ask people to pray for all involved." But I got to get some perspective on this. So let me bring back on friend of the show, former homicide prosecutor Matt Murphy. Matt, good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on. So before we even get into the mother, like 5 minutes before we came on, we found out that Luigi Mangione in Pennsylvania has waived his extradition, which means now he is going to be transported immediately back to New York. You surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. This is something you see all the time in murder cases, where somebody will either flee to another state or they'll be in from another state when they commit the murder, and extraditing somebody from another state in America is actually really easy to do. They're entitled to process, but you're going to get them 100% of the time. So his lawyers, he's got a very capable defense team here. They knew that, and they made the decision to just get this case up to New York, where it's ultimately going to be no matter what.
Like, don't waste the time.
Yeah, because the Pennsylvania charges were kind of like, yeah, it was like 1 or 2 felonies, but fake ID, gun charge, whatever. Like in New York, clearly, you know, they want more. They got a bigger case. You know, they don't want to deal with the aggressive New York prosecutors calling them every day. So they're like, you know what, man, fuck that shit, bro. Just send them up there. So, you know, it is what it is. Also, with that said, guys, we're at 924, guys. So let's get to, we're only 70 likes away, man. 70 likes away from 1,000. Let's go. Let's hit that 1,000 likes.
Time and the resources of trying to fight this, like the legal expense of fighting it. You know, you're going to lose. You're going to lose extradition.
You're going to lose extradition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so now I want to talk about this issue with the mother, because what do you make of that statement?
Well, I think that, number one, it's important for everybody to remember that the family here is not at fault. Okay, the family was cooperative with law enforcement. The family also, I read some things that they'd actually submitted a missing persons report with San Francisco when they were trying to find him towards the end of the summer. So I think
his mom lives in San Fran, chat.
That this is one of those things that
even though he's from Maryland,
just heard one too many rants. And when the mother said she could see her son doing that, that's obviously very significant from an investigative perspective. But the question is, do they need that at this point? And I think based on this evidence, the answer to that is no. You get a 3-page manifesto that is a statement of intent that's already in there, right? You know, I think that Alvin Bragg won't be prosecuting this case.
Chat says, good question here. He goes, Mark Hughes says, are you going to do Fed Reacts on a gross school shooter? Yeah, I probably will. I probably will.
Himself, I think.
Maybe next week.
That whoever he has is going to be capable, and this will be the type of thing that I don't think we're going to see too many family members on the stand.
Do you think, though, they're being interviewed?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, the family has already been interviewed.
For what information? What do you think?
For motive, for plans, for schemes. Who else might he have been mad at? Are there any other murders? They're going to cross every T and dot every I in this investigation, and that's going to include interviewing the family, who, based on everything that I've reviewed, appears to be totally cooperative and doing everything right.
And I know when she was speaking, we mentioned this, when she was speaking to law enforcement, she couldn't officially, like 100% confirm that that was her son. And by the way, I think there's going to be maybe a separate argument. You look at the surveillance photos, some people look and be like, yeah, it looks like him. And there's others like, I'm not entirely sure. So I think that's kind of understandable. But then again, it was those photos what
60 more likes, guys. We're at 943.
Led to his identification as arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania. I thought that was significant that it was reported that that happened. Look, I hate to ask this question, but I have to ask this question. We live in a day and age where separate scenarios, but when we deal with school shootings, right, these are people who are underage. You ask, what did the parents know? Was it foreseeable? Should they be held liable? Obviously, he's an adult male. But if there was evidence, and again, there is no evidence to suggest this whatsoever, but that statement just made me wonder, if there was evidence that they knew he maybe was capable of something, maybe they didn't know that he was going to do something like this, they couldn't be held liable, right? They couldn't be held liable on a civil side or even a criminal side?
Well, on the criminal side, they certainly couldn't. There's no obligation in any state to take affirmative action to prevent a crime. Okay. If they help in some way, or if they facilitate, aid, abet, or encourage, that's a different story than they could. But we have no evidence of that. And based on everything that I've read about the family, everything that they've said publicly or the representatives have, I doubt there's going to be anything along those lines that we're going to see. I think this is a young guy who got his head twisted up onto this, and he had this zeal against corporate America and healthcare specifically. One of the interesting things, Jesse, that I think in that manifesto is he said these parasites, plural.
Yes.
And you know, I've seen some crazy conspiracy.
My man called them parasites. Oh, man.
Stuff online, which, by the way, it's like, this is what happens in murder cases. I've had murder cases where there's been backpacks with a cornucopia of evidence.
962, guys. 40 more likes. Let's cook. Let's hit 1,000. We got Fresh and Fit after this. All right? I'm going to be doing it solo. Just me. All right? Just going to be me, ninjas. So like the goddamn video. We have a long night tonight, my friends. You guys are going to be riding the night train with me. It's going to be a good time. So like the goddamn video, because I got a flight tomorrow morning at like 7. Going to go out to Arizona. Going to be out there rubbing some elbows with some individuals. Me and some people. Shit like that. So the grind doesn't end, guys. Like the video.
Evidence like we see in this. So this really is the way these things work a lot of times. If they plan it out, they get very good at figuring out how to get away from the murder scene and not so good about getting away with the murder, because this appears to be his first crime. But, you know, parasites, plural, is interesting, and that may go a long way to explain why he still had this weapon, why he still had this fake IDs, and why they hadn't caught him yet.
You mean targeting potentially other?
Very well might be. And one of the things that everybody's been talking about in this case that I think is very interesting is the reaction on social media. Sure. He's a handsome young guy, and we see people saying, you know, violence is bad, but we've seen officials like Elizabeth Warren came out and said something like that. Bernie Sanders said something like that. This professor at Penn said she was proud to be a University of Penn professor because of what he did. And look, murder is murder.
That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. But I will tell you guys this. As someone that went to a prestigious school, they're a little loony on the left, bro. They're loony over there, man. They're fucking crazy, man. And UPenn is no different. These Ivy League schools, radically left. All of them.
There's no murder's bad, but, you know, that's like a domestic violence case where some man kills his wife. You know, we don't in the courtroom engage in a big, well, what did she do to deserve it? Did she say something like, was she cheating on him? Like, that's not what it's about. It's murder is murder, murder is bad, and this whole thing where people are trying to take advantage of it and is exactly the purpose of terrorism in the state of New York. It's about trying to influence public policy.
I was going to ask you about that. Look, I've been screaming on the rooftops that I think it's insane that people are praising this, or seemingly supporting it. But let me ask you this: the terrorism charges, right? Some would say, you know, I get that, right? You know, if it's done to send a message, if it's done to change policy, if it's done to, you know, it's done in the middle of the streets of New York City, it was done to terrorize. So this is the language, what you would need to trigger the terrorism component. The defendant with intent to cause.
Damn, we got 55% for Sunday on Fed Reacts, damn, versus 45% on Sunday. 55 on Friday, 45% on Sunday. Damn, all right, I'm gonna have to rethink some shit.
The death of another person caused the death of Brian Thompson, and said person was killed in furtherance of an act of terrorism involving a violent act and acts dangerous to human life that were in violation of the criminal laws of this state and were intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policies of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion, and affect the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping. How does it fit here?
Well, I think it fits broadly. The DA's office is going to argue that this is an attempt to influence public policy. This is an attempt to influence government policy towards healthcare and or the healthcare corporations themselves. So that's where the argument's going to come from, that this man was murdered because of...
All right, that makes sense.
...the way healthcare operates in the United States, and this is an attempt to influence public policy. That's going to be the argument that's coming their way.
Would it be a successful argument?
It's an interesting thing, right? Because what the defense is going to argue here is they're going to say, yeah, he hated him because of that, but he wasn't actually trying to take that additional step and impact policy. Now, I've only seen part of the manifesto.
988, guys, almost to 1,000. Let's go.
So
can I read you a few?
Yeah.
Can I read you a few statements?
Yeah.
And so keep that in mind. I'm just going to read you a few statements from this. So it's not only the manifesto, but it was also this notebook that was found as well. To the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. I do apologize for any strife of traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. And regarding United Healthcare, the writer talked about how it's grown and grown.
We got a thing here from Punisher Gotcha says, Debbie Martin, have you had time to do any research yet on the drones and orbs? I want to hear your take on what's happening worldwide. That's from Punisher Gotcha. I haven't, but I can. Flurry says, these ninjas going to be at the club on Friday nights, spending money on 304s instead of the stream. Stick to Sunday. Okay.
But has our life expectancy? No, the reality is these have simply gotten too powerful and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit. And according to CNN and ABC, there was also a passage about not using a bomb because that would kill too many innocents and how the shooting would be more targeted. And also there was a statement, what do? You whack the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. By the way, that goes into the idea of knowing where the target was going to be. But those writings, do you think A, will be used to support this terrorism charge, and is it enough?
Well, the manifesto in its entirety is certainly going to come into evidence, and it's a statement of intent, also known as motive, right? So absolutely they're going to be used. Whether it's enough, we'll see. If I was prosecuting this case, I would absolutely have charged first-degree murder, and I would absolutely go forward with this terrorism count. And, you know, the people that you see the impact of it, because now it is him.
We hit 1,000. Shout out to you, ninjas. Appreciate it, guys. We're going to be wrapping this thing up soon because I got the Fed Reacts where we're going to go very soon.
Impacting it.
Does that come into evidence, the reaction, the public reaction? Because you don't know if, like, did he expect that? Did he expect to be a folk hero?
I think he wanted to be a folk hero. I think that he is over the moon right now.
That's crazy. They made signs and everything. Free Luigi.
Now that so many people are coming in supporting him because it shows that he has had the exact impact that he wants. Probably we're not going to see the social media response introduced against him. Where that's going to come out is during the selection of the jury. There are going to be questionnaires, and they're going to have to weed out people that are sympathetic to this. Yeah, and that's
yeah, they are. And not only that, you got a bunch of girls that love this guy.
Where it's going to come in. That's where everybody's going to become aware of it.
I get why they went first degree. The reason in New York it wasn't just automatic to charge first degree murders because New York is very specific. It's not just premeditated murder. It's specific categories in order for a first degree to actually be triggered. That's why you see a lot of cases, you're like, why is that second degree? It's because that's really the only way it fits. First degree, yes, there's terrorism. Other times it's if you kill a police officer. I think it's killings that are done maybe, I think, at a prison, things like that.
Which is a great point. And as lawyers, and people who watch the Law and Crime Network, I think they can appreciate it. In California, first-degree murder is any murder committed with premeditation, deliberation, or any of these special circumstances would make it, like a murder committed during a rape, a kidnapping, a child molest, a bank robbery. All of those could make it felony murder or first-degree murder. Here, first-degree murder is essentially what we would call a special circ murder in California. It's murder committed of a judge, murder committed of a police officer, in a prison, like you said. And on that list, there is terrorism, and terrorism is defined by, like, what you already quoted. You know.
I want to go back to and this where we talk about with the mother, right? So we've talked about the writings, we've talked about things that are online, we've talked about the crime. For her to allegedly make a statement that she thinks this is something he might be capable of, I'm paraphrasing, it would seem to suggest that she knew some of this. And the question becomes, how did she know this? When did she know this? I think these are fair questions. That press conference, it stood out to me. It stood out to a lot of people. I think that's why you're seeing so many articles about this mother's statement. Do you think we'll get those answers, and will they be explored at a trial?
Well, I think the police will certainly get those answers. Whether that's ever made public or whether it's ever admitted in a trial really is it's a second question. I think if they get something really good, they would probably want to introduce that. I mean, imagine how many rants this family has had to listen to. And it's speculative by us at this point. Of course, he's presumed innocent, but imagine this guy last Thanksgiving, you know, sitting around the table talking about his political beliefs. You know, we all have some friend that's...
These goddamn insurance companies, goddamn, they pissed me off.
Out there on the far left or the far right that rants and rants and rants, and then all of a sudden if you see somebody that looks like them consistent with one of those rants, you could see a statement like the mom saying, hey, look, I'm shocked, the family's devastated, but I could see him doing something like that. I mean, I think that's the context we're talking about.
And one other thing I'll say about the family, and I don't know the family at all, but just putting a realistic component, the law enforcement's reaching out to you about a suspected shooter that murdered a health insurance CEO. You might be so frantic, you don't even know what you're saying. I think that's fair too. Like, you know, you're being confronted with the idea that your son might be now the most wanted man in the United States.
He was the most wanted man, and the FBI put 50K up.
Have to also color a little bit with what she said with that. I think we have to be careful of just taking everything at face value.
There's no doubt. And also, look, this is a guy who apparently went off the rails. He stopped communicating with his friends and family several months ago. So she's been worried. The family made that missing persons report in San Francisco. So they've probably been increasingly concerned about his mental health, the direction that he's been moving in. And so, look, my heart kind of goes out to them a little bit. You know, this is devastating for them. But I have to say, for 17 years in the homicide unit, I spent a lot of time dealing with victims of murder. And the first thing I would do after filing charges always was sit down with the family and kind of introduce my team and let them know that there were people that actually cared. What this man's family is going through, the victim in this case,
Brian Thompson,
is absolutely the worst thing a family can experience. And for all of those, like Elizabeth Warren or like that Penn professor who want to use this as a way of advancing their own political agenda, look, they're condoning murder. When you start talking about, well, murder's bad or violence is bad, but what this family is going through is the worst of the worst, and I think everybody needs to take a deep breath before they look at a guy who looks handsome and says, oh, I'd acquit him if I was on the jury. No, you wouldn't. Actually, if you follow the law, you wouldn't do that, or any rational, decent human being would not do that.
It's a conflating of an anger towards the health insurance industry, but saying this is somehow understandable, this is somehow justified, and I think that's really dangerous, not only for this, but also where does it end?
Well,
right?
that's exactly right. Where's next on the list?
Yeah.
And if we could get a list from those people, maybe
he could have killed some other people, man. It looked like he was he didn't plan ahead too well to escape properly, but who knows what he would have done if he had more time.
They would just be the ones that have to increase their security, and you and I wouldn't have to pay so much more for our health care, because that's the great irony, right? Yeah. I mean, I pay for my own health care, and it's expensive, and I just know it's going to go up because now the CEO of my health care company is going to get 24-hour security because of this. So the ironic upshot is health care is about to get more expensive. It's vastly complex. The person who hadn't had it figured out, I guarantee, is Luigi Mangione or this Penn professor. You know, it's vastly complex, and you're exactly right. Like, we can't mitigate murder, especially cold-blooded, planned murder like this, because the person had a reason. The person who commits murder always has a reason to do it. Yep. They always, 100% of the time, there's a reason to kill another human being. But if it's a good reason, we don't call it murder anymore. You call it self-defense. You call it maybe a manslaughter. Right. There is no path to mitigate this case into a manslaughter. There's no way to get there. They may argue mental illness. I'm sure they will. But you know, when you start doing that, it is such a slippery slope. And how many other people are on that list? Because everybody has a reason when they commit a murder. And it's like, well, what did the wife do? Well, was the neighbor really obnoxious when he was playing his music too loud at the party? You can't do that. Murder is murder. Wrong is wrong. And factors in mitigation is something that gets considered by a jury under some circumstances or a judge. You know, and I don't see it here.
By the way, just to give a second perspective on this before we wrap it up, we did a whole episode yesterday on Sidebar about Brian Thompson, and people might not realize this, but portraying him as the villain of the story is not only inappropriate, but it's inaccurate. If you look at the way what he was trying to do before his death about changing the perspective on United Healthcare and the views of health insurance, I think it's something I encourage everybody to check out. Look, I don't know him fully. United Healthcare had a ton of problems because we actually did an episode on that as well. Like in that.
Oh yeah, there was a video that they posted. But okay, guys, so I am going to be back in about 10-15 minutes for Fresh and Fit. I'm gonna end the stream here for Fed Reacts. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Timestamps will be up. Like the video. We hit 1,000, but if we can hit 1,100 on the way out, I'd really appreciate that if you guys really could. So stop what you're doing. Like the video, helps with the engagement a lot, helps other people find this content, especially with the true crime stuff. We went through the complaint in detail. What I predict next is going to be indicted more than likely, guys, in the Southern District of New York. And federal case is going to begin. I think more than likely they're going to defer this case to the feds. The state, man, they got their little perp walk. You know, there's probably some type of agreement. Look, you guys can go ahead and push your case, but we get to perp walk them. That's what I think probably happened here, right? District Attorney's Office not going to care because it's less work for them. I think NYPD just wanted to do the perp walk. That's their main thing. Got their perp walk, and the case more than likely going to go federal is what I think. That's what I predict. So, yeah. So, guys, let me get here. Let me see here if I got any other chats before we close this thing out. Going for almost 2 hours. Shit. Love y'all ninjas, man. All right. So yeah, okay, guys, I'm gonna be back with some Fresh and Fit. We're gonna do a night train. Love y'all ninjas. Peace. Be back here in about. I'm gonna go live probably around 7:15. 7:15 on Fresh and Fit. Go to Fresh and Fit now. Like the video before you do, right? Go to Fresh and Fit. Event's gonna be made. We're gonna go live here in a little bit. Love y'all ninjas. Peace out.